Fantastic. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cabinet meeting on the 21st of October. A warm welcome to those of us who are joining us online. I'm really pleased. We've actually got some visitors in the building with us tonight. You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. We will go through our normal process. So we will start the evening with any apologies. Have we had any to note?
Thank you, Chair. We've had no apologies.
Thank you. So I know that Councillor Mickleborough isn't with us yet. I am expecting him, but it may well be that he's been delayed by public transport arriving. If we can move on then to item 1, which is members' interests. Do any members need to declare a disclosable pecuniary or other registrable or non-registrable interest in relation to any agenda item? Councillor Ferguson.
It's not a pecuniary interest, but I wanted to make you aware that I have a friendship. I host a weekly podcast with a chap called Martin Curtis, who is, I think, a consultant for the Lodge Farm development, which is in the local plan as a strategic site. I don't think my friendship is as consequential. Well, it's not consequential enough for us to ever have discussed any of the sites in the local plan, and nor would I, but I want to make you aware of that interest.
Thank you. And if I can just take advice from officers, does that mean that Councillor Ferguson needs to absent himself from any of tonight's debate?
Thank you, Chair. No, the nature of Councillor Ferguson's interest is inconsequential in the grander scheme of the proposal that's before you tonight, and therefore, having declared the interest, he can still take part and debate and vote.
Yeah, I also confirmed that with the monitoring officer earlier on.
Thank you. It's really important, obviously, it's due process, and particularly because this has a link back into planning, is an extra layer of complexity. It matters that we get it absolutely spot on. In which case, then, we will move on to the substantial item, which is item 2. Oh, I do apologise. Oh, sorry, Councillor Howell, I do apologise.
I just wanted to double check. Business premises that I rent is on a site that is also owned by the people who are doing the development in Yaxley, but that's already got permission.
We'll take advice.
Thank you, Chair. So just for the purpose, it's a site that's already got permission. Well, then it's not going to, in that case, it won't be affected by this, which is about future allocation, site allocation. That's already a done decision in terms of an approval.
That's fine. It's the site on here for Yaxley is owned by the same people, but it's already got approval. I just wanted to double check. That was all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So it's a separate site. You lease a separate build. So you lease building A, which has already got a permission, and so, site B is in here.
Is in here, but I believe that's already got planning permission as well. But I just wanted to make it totally transparent. That was all.
From how you've described that, notwithstanding we haven't got the monitoring officer, I don't believe we've passed the threshold in terms of declaring an interest, in terms of the broader site allocation debate, and we're out for consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If anybody does, as we go through tonight's agenda, realise that there is something they wish to declare, obviously, please do, in the time-honoured fashion, please indicate. But of course, tonight, the only decisions before us are we going out to consultation, not preempting, obviously, that we will make that decision, but you're not actually being asked tonight to make decisions on particular locations. That's a much further down the path, part of a process. In which case, then, I'm going to hand across to Councillor Sanderson. I'm really pleased we've been joined by Clara and Claire, who I think are going to be at our elbow if we have any technical aspects. But Councillor Sanderson, I'll hand across to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, colleagues. So I'm pleased to present this paper, the Preferred Options Draft Local Plan to 2046, and its supporting sustainability appraisal for approval. And if approved, to publish then for public engagement for 6 weeks starting on the 5th of November 2025. Excuse me, a bit croaky. Before I go into more detail, I'd just like to thank the team, as you said, two colleagues sitting here, Clara and Claire. Also, Francis Schultz, Natalie Elworthy, Benji, and all the other members of the team who have worked tirelessly on this for more than 2 years now. And also colleagues on the Local Plan Advisory Group, which was chaired most recently by Councillor Dew, very much across party, people like Councillor Butler, Councillor Niche, Gledo, Hassel, and others who have worked hard as well, looking at each stage as we've gone through it. So as the report says, extensive public engagement has been undertaken throughout 2023 and 24 on the issues of concern to be addressed through a revised local plan and on the many sites that were put forward as possible development site allocations. A series of technical evidence documents have also been prepared to investigate the most sustainable, viable and deliverable approaches. All those responses and the evidence have been drawn together to produce this plan today. I won't go through each section, but that's detailed on page 3. But it's anticipated that the various sections will form the final non-statutory phase of public engagement under Regulation 18, and they'll provide local communities, organisations and stakeholders with an opportunity to put forward their opinion during this time. So the aspiration is to progress to a proposed submission local plan to 2046 in next summer 2026. And this will support the intended timetable set out in the local development scheme to reach a submission to the inspector in December 2026. The recommendations before you, we have 3 of them. Firstly, to approve the contents of the preferred options local draft plan to 2046 for public engagement. Secondly, to approve the contents of the sustainability appraisal of the preferred options draft local plan to 2046 for public engagement. And finally, to grant delegated authority to the head of planning, infrastructure and public protection to make any necessary typographical or other minor changes to the documents prior to their publication. And I hope that summarises it neatly, but if you have any questions, we are happy to answer.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. So, colleagues, you've been on this journey for some time. This is the next sort of phase of the process. Are there any questions or comments that you wish to make at this stage? Councillor Davenport-Ray.
I was wondering if officers could explain more about what routes will the public have to comment on this? What ways have we designed for them to interact with the consultation?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport-Ray. We have already brought a consultation plan and communications plan to the Overview Scrutiny Committee in July this year, which set out the main elements of engagement. But to summarise them, our expectation is that we will hold 8 exhibitions around the district, focused in areas which are most likely to be subject to growth. We have, of course, our consultation portal, which I'm delighted to say will be much simpler for people to use this time, because there are only going to be 2 documents to be commented on rather than about 18. So that should be easier. We are preparing some video guides on how to register for people who are not yet on that engagement portal, both how to register and how to submit comments. And we have used a mock-up version of this current local plan document so that nobody is looking at the wrong headings and wondering where they've got to. We are doing leaflets, posters. Comms team will be doing loads of social media work. What else? Banners in the parks are going up again, because last time they received some 600 hits on the QR codes on that, which was surprisingly successful to us. Again, big banners on the refuse freighters, just because they go everywhere in the district. So that probably sums up most of it.
Thank you. And if I can just add to that, what we do know from the last round of consultation on the local plan is that we had the highest number of consultation responses than we've ever had previously to a consultation. So clearly the methodology is working. But inside that, alongside giving thanks to the parishes and those who've worked with us to promote the local plan as we've gone on, I would also encourage members as well to be actively promoting this within their communities, within their parishes as well. So clearly we'll have the timetable of events where we're going to be. We would really appreciate it if through your platforms as well, through your comms with your parishes, you can highlight the importance of coming along to these. So, and again, as I say, without preempting the consultations, but I would like to give thanks to kind of everybody who helped promote it through the last rounds, and we look forward to working positively with everybody again through this round to see how residents and businesses, parishes and towns can help us shape the plan towards the final plan next summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly lots to look forward to there. And it's interesting about the banners in parks. It's that thing about just getting people where they happen to be, which is not always necessarily where we think that they'll always look. But that's a brilliant example of getting out and about. Are there any other questions or any other comments? I know that we've all been engaged in this process for some time. Councillor Wakeford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm extremely pleased to see this in front of us this evening. As has been outlined, it's merely a step on a fairly lengthy journey that officer colleagues in particular know particularly well. Not even the first time they've been on it in some cases, but we are a good way down. I think we can see the horizon as set out in the time frame for next year in Councillor Sanderson's opening remarks. I'm particularly pleased that what's in front of us and what we're able to proceed to put out to consultation, is more than merely the product of us as Cabinet and the Executive of the Council, and internally in HDC. I think the work of the Local Plan Advisory Group, as Councillor Sanderson flagged, has been really critical, and I think it's so valuable that sort of body is able to exist on a cross-party basis and work so constructively, and of course has been informed by all of the enormous volume of contribution from the public and other stakeholders, as Clara's just referenced. So I don't have questions. I dare say I and residents can get into detailed questions and commentary, but that's not what this evening's for. This is for giving a green light to allowing that to kick off. So I'll be extremely pleased to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Wakeford, and LPAG, as we refer to them, the Local Plan Advisory Group, I know have been working tirelessly to look through the earlier iterations of this document before it's got to this point, to make sure that we're in the best place possible. So that's a really important part of our process. Are there any other comments or questions? Because if not, I'm going to move us through. So Councillor Davenport-Ray?
Have we moved into the debate phase?
We have.
All right, thank you. As the Cabinet Member for Climate, there's some things about the draft that's in front of us that I'm particularly proud of, and I think they're worthy of noting on the record. For example, in our draft vision, that we're working with nature to help achieve carbon zero, boosting flood defenses, supporting our rivers and flood meadows, enhancing biodiversity, so many things that I know are so important to our residents. And also that one of our draft strategic objectives is specifically about renewable energy generation being embedded through our new developments, both issues that residents come to me and ask about quite often. So I'm very proud of the draft before us, but I do agree that now is our time to listen. There's a draft in front of the public, and now is our time to stand back and listen to what they think. And I really do hope that the public take up all the opportunities you're providing them to feed in, because this isn't just about allocation of sites. It's about so much more than that. It's about affordable housing. It's about the mix of social housing with commercial. It's about renewable energy. It's about water efficiency. It's about trying to minimize embodied carbon in the buildings that we're building, and also about our historic buildings. And when politicians are out campaigning, these are some of the topics that come up again and again from our residents. And so I hope to see, shall I say, an even better number of people feeding back than we had last time, although that's a tall order. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport-Ray. And of course, we're also looking forward to developers and other interested parties having their say through this document. For those that watch regularly, every month when we look at planning decisions, the local plan, it shapes that thinking. And our planning officers go back to it as the regular advice. So making sure that it's forward-looking so that it's fit for purpose for the coming years, really, really important. So yes, I agree. I'm very much looking forward to people commenting and sharing their thoughts, either endorsing things that we've done or saying, have you thought about, or actually, we're not sure about this. All of that feedback genuinely does inform our thinking and is really critical. But officers have worked really hard to get us into this place. If there are no other comments then at this point, Councillor Ferguson.
With regard to hard work, I'm just recalling that about 3.5 years ago when we were first elected, we were hauled into a room and talked about the importance of getting the local plan together and all the hard work that would be ahead of us. Well, it hasn't been ahead of people around this table mainly, it's been officers and members of DMC, but it is a fabulous achievement to have got this far, and I think it's a fabulous document. I think we were aware back then that we wanted this to be our legacy as an administration, and increasingly it's looking like our legacy as a district, isn't it? Because it might be one of our final things we do. So thank you very much, officers, for the enormous amount of hard work you've done in getting here, not even on time, ahead of time, basically. So I think it's a very, very credible amount of work and something we should all be very proud of, and something that, of course, the public should be engaging with as well.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. And again, I'm going to say again on record, because not everybody will realise, that the reason that we're continuing to do this work is because actually this will set the right pattern for Huntingdonshire as we move through local government reorganisation. So we're actually determined to get that through. Others, I think, are possibly thinking that local plans and updating is not a priority. We think it's a real priority for our residents and actually will stand out our communities in good stead, which is why we're working so hard to do this. We could have pulled back. We aren't. We're continuing to push at pace. Councillor Ferguson?
Just to say that some of our potential partners in local government reorganisation have taken that approach, which is it's a decision, but it's not a decision that we would have made lightly. And I think we're all very proud and determined to push ahead with this.
Thank you. Unless there are any more comments, in which case then we've got recommendations before us, and as I say, we've been on this journey for some time, but this is the next stage of the process. So I'm just going to go back so I can read them, and I'm going to ask in a moment if you are happy to take them on block. Bear with me a moment. Hang on a minute. Thank you very much. Mike's just reminded me, because things are moving quickly, there is also the challenge that our local plan may also need to reflect things which are happening in the tier of government above us, which is our combined authority. So Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority meets tomorrow, and on its agenda is the local growth plan, which it is required to produce and deliver to government, that sets out what growth might look like in our area. Now, that's not determined until tomorrow, and I don't know what outcomes of that process will be. I sit on the board, but obviously it's got to be something that the whole board considers and then has a view on. If that's adopted, there may well be things in there that we may wish to reflect in the local plan to make sure we've got some consistency across the piece. There's nothing in there at this stage which is very different from anything that we're already working on. But I think the answer is, Mike, we might want to make sure we've got the right delegations to allow officers, again, as in line with like the minor typos, that if there are minor adjustments that we need to reflect, just to make sure documentation aligns. Because when we finish going through this process, one of the challenges I think from an inspector will be making sure that we have got everything aligned across the tiers of government that we are required to. Mike, can I hand across to you?
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, absolutely recognise that is a moving feast, and we have based it around the local growth plan to the best of our knowledge and the published papers that have gone before us. But I think with the delegation and the words that you've just set out there, if Cabinet are happy, we can make any necessary amends following tomorrow's discussion in advance of the papers being published.
So if you're happy with that, I'm going to read the recommendations as they are set out in your pack on page 4. And I'm going to suggest, unless anybody has a strong view, that we take them en bloc. So just a reminder, so we are going to consider, and I'm going to ask for a seconder because I will propose the recommendation. So the recommendations are to approve the contents of the preferred options draft local plan to 2046 for public engagement, to approve the contents of the sustainability appraisal of the preferred options draft local plan to 2046 for public engagement, to grant delegated authority to the Head of Planning, Infrastructure and Public Protection to make any necessary typographical or any other minor changes to the document prior to the publication, or their publication, I should say, because of course there are two documents. And that also then includes that reference to the local growth plan if we need to make any minor amendments. I'm happy to propose them from the chair. Do I have a seconder? I'm looking at Councillor Sanderson, seeing as it's your portfolio. Thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour? Thank you. So that is carried unanimously, in which case then I need to thank officers again, to thank LPAG. We look forward to this now moving into the consultation phase. I know that it's a fairly tight turnaround, so all those watching online and those in the room, once it's announced, please make sure that you've acknowledged the deadline, because there is a quick turnaround, but we certainly look forward to your full participation and your contributions. On that note then, that actually brings us to the end of tonight's extraordinary meeting and tonight's agenda. And at a very smart 7:22, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.